wants me to add a title. That ain't happening. I don't believe in titles.
Well, it's so quiet.
Why is it quiet?
I don't hear anything.
There's nothing. I've been over 20 seconds. I was literally staring at my phone that whole time, looking at a text someone sent me.
Ain't nothing happening here.
Nothing happening here? Nothing's ever happening here. You know where we're at, Ross? We're at an undisclosed location. And nothing ever happens at this undisclosed location, ever. Nothing illegal, nothing legal, nothing. Like, yeah, we might drink, but we're above the age of 21 here. And, you know who else is like above the age of 21? The Washington County Flag Football League. Ross.
Yeah.
What an off season we're having, right?
Had its ups and downs.
It's been very interesting. It's been very, very interesting. As you all know, we here at Team Blunt Talk have signed a deal with the Owings Mills Flag Football League. We will be providing coverage for them beginning April 11th, kickoff at 8 a.m. We will be live, OMFFL, TBT. But tonight, we get ready to pay tribute and say goodbye to the league that I have called home since I was a kid. And a league that you, Ross Collins, found yourself in. Remember all those years ago? Well, tonight,
Was it 4 or 5 years ago?
Oh my God, it's crazy, Ross. 5 years since that first alumni game. We're going to talk about that. We're going to talk about everything. Tonight is all about the Washington County Flag Football League and the times out here between myself, Ross Collins, and anybody else. If you want to call in tonight and talk about the Washington County Flag Football League and its illustrious history, 50 years, Ross. 50. We're going to post a link in the comments. That's the link right there. Looking forward to it. Tonight's all about Washington County Flag Football League because that's the league we call home, and that's the league that's gave us the love and respect over the years that they deserve, that we deserve, and they deserved because, it was a hell of a ride we had, Rosser. And I truly appreciate it. And would appreciate also if all conversation, out of due respect, gentlemen, is kept about our league. Thank you. We'll get to that in a few weeks, Ross Collins.
Yeah.
It's going to be great. We're looking forward to that and much, much more this spring.
Yeah, we can definitely do that. Just not tonight.
Yeah.
We'll get to that.
We got a lot of things going on this spring. Let's look back, though, at what got us to where we are tonight, that if not for this, we wouldn't be able to go to events such as East Coast Nationals, May 1st and 2nd.
Right.
Or anything such as Craig Mibbs' Nitro Tournament, March 20th and 21st. Let's see, let me get Tom in there real quick. Let's start by giving an oversight of the Washington County Flag Football League.
So this is your day, man. You started with write-ups, dude.
I did, but let's get back to how the league began. Washington County was
before I even thought flag football was a serious thing.
Well, you got to.
I even born?
No. You know what? My dad was like not even born either. I heard the there's origins that go back as far as 1968.
The only person I know that's been here the whole time is Sean Motes, man. He's been here since the beginning.
Shit. I know, man. Him, George Nunn, Kenny Diener, Tom Hoffman.
Right.
You know, Chris Boone stopped by for a cup of coffee, and he didn't like the way it tasted, so he walked out and disappeared for 15 years. And then he came back and became the god of Washington County. The Washington County Flag Football League began in 1970 officially, as Thomas stated. There has been origins, however, going back to when the game was first played in the area in the late 60s. They started out at River Bottom Park in Williamsport, and from there they moved to Hagerstown Community College for a little bit. Yeah, HCC. You know, it'd be cool. I would love – somebody has to make an HCC flag football team. That has to be a thing. There's so much football talent from our area that when they're trying to go into college after high school, they go to Hagerstown Community College. Oh, my God, the potential's right there. You'd be pulling from all over. From there, they continued onward. It went to South Hagerstown High for a while. You know, good old South High. And that is where our esteemed commissioner, a man who grew up in this league just like I did as a kid. He grew up in it too. He was there way back. Tommy, tell me about the first time you picked up a football as a kid and watched your dad play in the Washington County Flag Football League.
Oh my gosh, I was probably
And he has no audio.
Oh,
Tommy, you gotta turn your audio on.
can you hear me now?
What is going on with the audio? You know what? My audio somehow got muted. Yeah, what the hell? Now we got it. No
Can
wonder.
you hear me?
Now I got you. That was my screw up that time.
Jeez, Pete's.
I know, man. I'm already batting 0 here. Like, not a good start to the show. I'm going to try to get better. We're going to try to work it. But anyways, Tom, going back to your beginning, tell us about the first time you remember being up at what was South Hagerstown High at the time, watching the Washington County Flag Football League.
Like I say, probably before I picked up a football, I was riding bikes and pumping kegs and partying with the guys up on the hill. I had 2 older brothers. Everybody knows Andy. Not too many people know I'm another brother, Doug. But they would always be playing up there. I was always too little to play with them, or they would let me play and beat the crap out of me until I quit. But you know, they got a little bit older and kind of moved on, and it wasn't as cool to come to Dad's games anymore. But I kept coming, and like I say, there's 6 years difference between me and Andy. So I used to love tagging along with Dad on Saturday mornings. He would let us hang until the games were over. Usually they would go to the South End Tavern after games, and we'd go to my grandma's. So until they were done at the bar, and they'd pick us up and take us home. So parents of the year for that. But yeah, a lot of great memories on that sideline. Like I say, a couple of years ago when we went back there for the spring league, that was pretty cool to be able to play there again. Because like I say, my whole childhood growing up, that's where Dad played. It wasn't until after he quit that they moved to Marty Snook and started playing the league out there. So yeah, my whole childhood was, like I say, I learned how to ride my bike in that big South High parking lot. Took the training wheels off, and away I went. Kind of put some marks on some cars every now and then. So some guys on his team weren't real fond of my early bicycling days, but yeah, a lot of fun back at that the hill at South High.
Man, oh man. Yeah, that's South sounds amazing during that time period. That sounded like the place to be on a Saturday morning. Roll up, hang out, watch some good football. Do you remember many games clearly when you were younger, Tom, that stood out to you?
There was always like I say, rivalry games. Dad's team back then was Hannigan's Outlaws, and Midtown Marauders was always good. Grove Jewelers was always good. Rick Short's team, we always just called it Rick Short's team, but it was like Pabst Blue Ribbon or something. They were all the games were really competitive. The referees were in full tilt. The uniforms were legit back then. They weren't, sleeveless jerseys. Everybody had on real football pants and real football jerseys. Most teams had home and away, whether it was a dark color home jersey or a white away jersey. But no specific games really stick out to me. I mean, it seemed like my dad's team played for years and years and years and always lost in the championship game. They would go undefeated and make it all the way to the championship game and then get knocked off by Midtown or somebody else. But like I say, and believe it or not, my dad was a quarterback. Big guy like Andy is, big guy like I am, but could throw it. He could run his offense, no huddle. And I mean, it was kind of before the times to do that. But, a lot of the stuff we do with Miller Lite and Broadaxe was him coaching us early on and kind of bringing that same system over. So, no, like I say, and talking to the Hall of Famers, a lot of those guys, they would kick the crap out of each other on the field and then turn right around, drink some beers on the hill, on the sidelines, and then head to whatever, sponsor bars they went to. If somebody won, they would go to that person's bar and hang out with them. And it was all about the camaraderie back then. I mean, everybody got along off the field, away from the field. Of course, they didn't have Facebook back then to stir the pot all the time. But like I say, a lot of the Hall of Famers had some really good times back then.
And they were definitely good times indeed to be had. Kind of like the ones that right now we are experiencing as adults that, your kid is experiencing Ross every week when he goes out there and hangs out, that I experienced as a kid in the late 90s when I went up to the Washington County Flag Football League. And, for me, I had a very similar experience, Tom. Right around the time I was growing up, going to Marty Snook Park is where we were by the time I first got in the league. I want to say the first season was around 97. Initially, I was there with my dad and his team. They were called Hammers back then. They wore red jerseys, blue numbers. They came out, they ran a wing tee offense, which was so different to think about running. Could you imagine a team nowadays coming out in the classic under center, hand off to the fullback, or run it yourself, throw one?
I was really hoping the Warriors would do that when they first came out, since they're like a notoriously running the wing tee coming out of Boonesboro, the Clayton Anders system. I was really hoping they would do that, but I think Ross and those guys figured out the wing tee wouldn't fly in our league. So.
Not gonna work. That's why we didn't do it, because it wasn't.
Yep. Yeah, it's definitely more of a passing leg than a running leg. So you can't line up in the I formation and just run the ball the whole time. Although, back then there were some city teams that would do that. They were big on big and run it down your throat. But it's hard to do that playing flag, no matter how big your offensive line is.
Yeah, and no, it's crazy to think about too. Like,
the game's gotten faster.
Yeah, the game has changed. So, and I go back and there's on the VHS tapes I have when I was a kid that I posted on YouTube. I go back and watch them. There were 3 games. One was against a team that no one knows who it is anymore. Supposedly they might have been a Frederick team who folded mid-season. The second game we play, Hannigan's Outlaws, which is after your dad's time, actually.
Correct.
And I go back and I watched that game between Hammers and Hannigan's. It's on YouTube. Very good game, very competitive game between 2 squads that, in the context, this was a playoff game that they faced off in, that Hammers knocked off Hannigan's to get to the next round. And And, it's awesome to look back and we have that kind of library on YouTube. I'm hoping we can find more video footage. But growing up back then, getting up early in the morning, going up to the park, game started at 8 o'clock. There was food vendors everywhere. There was people all over the place, plenty of kids to hang out with and throw the football with. Like, you had great football action every week. I came away as a kid and thought to myself, if I don't make it in professional sports, I want to do this when I grow up.
Well, I mean, it really, every kid, I used to coach high school football, and every kid on our team would say, oh, I'm going to walk on at Maryland, or I'm going to walk on at Shepherd, or I'm going to go here, I'm going to go there. And they just think they can walk on and do that. And realistically, you can't. But flag football, you can walk on with any team you want to. And I think, some of my high school kids out there that at one point said, oh, I'll walk on to this college, are coming out to the flag football league and realizing they can't even play out there, because it's so competitive. But some of them really have. I mean, I brought some kids out that, really excel and have a lot of fun with it. But you make what it is, you make the most of what you got. I never went to college and played college football or anything. And actually, like, I was,
You were fresh
growing
out of
up.
high school.
What's that? Yeah. I went to college for a year or two, came back. And then that's when I got started into it. A couple of the guys that were straight out of high school that played on my dad's team were still playing towards the end of their careers. That I looked up to like big brothers that, like, come on, Tommy boy, come play with our team. So, and plus they wanted my dad to coach. So it was kind of, dad was like, I'll come coach if you give Tom a shot. So
I think that's a good package deal. You look back at it, legendary quarterback, Hall of Famer, Washington County. And then you got a promising center as well, who you got to wonder in 1999, how long would Tom Hoffman play in the Washington County Flag Football League?
Well, still playing, man. And what is it, 2021?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Decades, man. You played
I honestly,
decades.
Like I say, before I started playing, I didn't think I would be good enough to play. Just because of those guys that I felt like were big brothers, a guy like Brian Lapole, Dave Lawrence, who is now the head coach of South High's football team. Those guys were beasts. I mean, Dave had went away in the Army and came back, and he was just an animal. Brian Lapole is all natural and can, at one time could bench press 450 pounds. I was like, these guys, I'm going to come out to practice. They're going to break me in half. And, I hung with them. I don't know if they were taking it easy on me or not in practice, but hung right there with them. And then, I was just a kid when I first started playing. So, playing with those guys, we got in back then. There were state tournaments and stuff like that. There weren't tournaments every weekend like there is now.
Maryland States was huge. I actually have it also on YouTube, a game where my dad's team traveled to Baltimore to take on, I believe they were called the Metro Chiefs back then.
Yep. The Metro Chiefs were like always a top ranked team. And then there was a team out of Virginia called the Dogs. And then those two combined to make the Metro Dogs. And just up until a couple of years ago, the Metro Dogs were still playing, and a lot of the Metro Dogs are still playing, but just on newer teams now. And back then there was a team called the Baltimore Packers they were the best. I mean, they had shirts that said the best damn nine, and they could bring that team, and whoever they brought knew their role that day, and they'd wax you. But those were the first couple teams that I played like state tournament wise. And man, I mean, there was no B bracket then. So it was, little Miller Lite against the Baltimore Packers. I mean, one weekend we played them both in one weekend. We lost to one 14-0 and the other one 14-7. And that was like right before we started winning a couple championships. So, So like I said, that was before the tournaments every other month and this and that. So some good times. But I remember getting dog trashed by some of those big guys. Whew. Took me a while to learn the ropes a little bit.
Yeah, my dad said when he went out there in '97 to go against the Chiefs team in Baltimore, because he had told me the setup back then had been that the league champion was essentially given a home game against a second place team from another league or something like that.
Correct. Yep. Yeah, there was kind of like zones like that. There'd be like the first place team here in Hagerstown would stay here, and then the second place team would go to Baltimore, and I guess like third and fourth place teams would go to Annapolis or Baltimore too. So each site you went to, there was 4 teams, and then if you won your first game, then you came back and played the second game, and maybe there was only 3 teams there. I'm not sure how it worked, but anyway, you got down to it that you played, and then if you won on Saturday, then you came back and you advanced to Sunday, and then they would all kind of merge usually in like Columbia, Maryland, or something like that. And then back then they used to play the Nationals up in Princeton, New Jersey, and I was always bummed about that because my dad would let me go to all the state tournaments down in Baltimore, but when they went to Princeton, they would stay up there, and he wouldn't let us kids go with him. So I always missed the national tournaments, but the national tournament now is in Florida and it's sunny and it's usually pretty nice. Well, think of Princeton, late November, December. I don't even know when it was back then, but it was freaking cold and it was just nasty.
And they posted a few weeks ago that the first ever flag football nationals as a whole was held
in Ohio.
No, December 1971 in St. Louis, Missouri.
Okay.
So St. Louis in December for your nationals trip.
Yeah. Well, like I said, the old guys I talked to with the Hall of Fame, they went to Ohio, and apparently there was a national tournament out there as well. So
it's probably like what it is nowadays, where there was like so many different ones that said nationals. This one national,
right?
Because this past year we just had UFFL, which we covered, and of course FFWCT in Panama.
Mm-hmm.
And I could definitely see that being the case back then because flag football has always been a highly regional sport.
Right.
Most teams will usually face off against teams closer to their local region. We're finally seeing more of a nationalization of the 9-man game in the last year or so.
Right.
Especially now when looking at, and this is me going off topic a little bit, but you take a look at what's going on with St. Louis coming up, with what's going on with another group of Washington County guys who's going to be traveling at A this year with the Misfits. And then you take a look at the rest of the region. Then you go up north. The game is booming right now. Teams are popping up all over the place. It's going to be a wild year, 9-man ahead. But going to go back to the beginning of your career, 99. I got some team jerseys from that time period. Let's see if you remember any of them. It's been a while. This one, for what I was told, this was donated to me by Scott T. Phillips. He said this was Joe Corby's.
Okay,
yeah.
Scotty Phillips, he ended up playing for Crazy Horse and Breakaways. So when you were going to hold that up, I thought it was going to be a Packers-looking jersey because that's what Breakaways was, or Crazy Horse was. I call them. They were Breakaways last, but they were Crazy Horse first. I don't know if you remember Crazy Horse or not, but
I remember Crazy Horse from back in the day.
Used to be a little steakhouse in the over there by Sakura by the mall.
Yeah, they still got the horse on top of the building still to this day. I drive.
Oh, is it still there?
Yeah, it's still there.
I think it's a crab place now, isn't it?
I haven't been there, to be honest. I still see the horse there, though. That's what stands out to me is the horse.
Right. Well, back when it was Crazy Horse, they used to have karaoke. So we would go in there and drink all their Miller Lite. If we won a championship, we would go in there because at that point we didn't have a bar per se to go to. So we would go in there and because they would have all their trophies. They won probably 3 or 4 or 5, like when I first started playing. So we would go in there and just sing and carry on and And like I say, we went in there after a championship one time and drank all the Miller Lite they had. They were like, sorry, we don't have any more Miller Lite products to give you. We were like,
Oh,
damn.
man. Got another one from Scott. Black Knights. But yeah, Black Knights.
They were a Middletown team.
I could tell by the collars. That's very Middletown. This is definitely a Middletown team. Yeah.
Yep. And at one time, the Black Knights, when you had that Joe Corby's thing up, I think they combined with like your dad and the Brunswick guys.
Yep, that's how it happened. My dad was part of the leadership on Joe Corby's.
Okay, I thought so.
Yeah, because he went from Hammers, and then there was something else in between because he was changing every year. Like I remember one of his rants as a kid was he was mad that he went to blue jerseys, and it was the first year that quote unquote that effing Miller Lite went to blue too.
No doubt. Of course, the Miller Lite was royal blue, and that was like Dolphins blue. So, but it's still no,
this was the one in between seasons. Like,
oh,
yeah, he went to blue for that season.
Oh, okay, I got you.
Yeah, and so it kind of had to be when they played each other, and they, the white T-shirt deal.
Oh man, that's so good.
My favorite.
Yeah.
But to think, Tom, your career started in 1999. You have faced off against both me and my father in 2 different games in 2 different decades. You faced against my Uncle Ben back in the day.
Uncle Ben was a beast, man. That guy had a motor that didn't stop. Man, he was an animal.
Dude, Ben's still a monster out there, man. Like, we had him at Turkey Bowl a few years ago, and he was balling on the D line.
Right. I can see it. I mean, he's, like I say, he's got a motor that doesn't stop. He was somebody you had to look out for.
Yeah, for sure. Like,
because if I'm not mistaken, your dad played center, didn't he? So I didn't.
My dad was a center.
I didn't really play head to head against him. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah, but opposing teams and all that.
Right. But definitely your Uncle Ben, would get a running start and ram into you, and he was a beast, man. He was tough.
Yeah, I've always said, out of all of us Bassfords, I would say it's pretty close with the toughest. But Ben on his best day can go against anybody in football.
I agree with that.
He did not care. He was reckless on the field. He was one of those guys who left it all on the field when he was done.
Yep, absolutely.
But early on, you were with Miller Lite. Tell us about that first championship.
First championship with Miller Lite. I played with Miller Lite 2 or 3 seasons. A guy named Dave Hutcher was in charge of the team. I love it.
Yeah.
I was going to drink one, but I didn't know if it was appropriate or not. But
feel free. This is my free show. I don't have any corporations looking over me here.
Okay. Well, they're downstairs in the fridge, so I won't hold the show up. But no, it was probably my second season that I took over our team. Had a new quarterback. It was my quarterback from high school, Chad McAllister. He was a tall guy, could really throw it. Man, it's hard to remember back then. I'm trying to think who else we had. Before we won it, it was Bulldogs, and once Bulldogs won it back-to-back seasons, a couple of the guys that were on their team came over to our team. A guy like Mike Lee, Tony Dixon. We got James Frisbee back, and we kind of stacked our team back again. And we just kind of that was years we played the Packers teams and the Metro Dogs teams and hung right with them. And actually we went down to, that was the first time Nationals was in Florida. I don't know if it was the first time Nationals was in Florida, but the first time we went.
Yeah, 2003 you guys went down there.
It was like, it was 04-05 is when we won the championship. So if I'm not mistaken, yeah. So, and it might have been 05-06 because we won in 04. We went to the Nationals in 05 because it was January. and then we won in 05 and we went in 06. So went to back-to-back years. Didn't always get all our guys to go. So when we got down there, we were kind of short-handed. I don't know if it would have made a big difference because the teams down there were so talented. I mean, they were just really good. So we'd lose our 2 games and drink the rest of the weekend. So we had a good time with it. Kind of put our name out there on the map. Those guys would know us when we went to tournaments. Maybe they'd be like, "Here comes the Miller Lite guys," because once we lost, we had big gulp cups full of beer on the sideline, drinking some cold ones, watching everybody else play. But like I say, we were competitive. And like I said, the first 2 years, that was Chad. I think the second year we had Grable as a receiver coming out of college. He had graduated from Frostburg. And my whole plan was to have Grable as my quarterback, but then Chad came out like 2 seasons before, and it was like, well, I'm not going to turn him away, and while I'm waiting on Grable to graduate college. So then it just so happened that Chad married a girl and moved to Tennessee, and then that's when Grable took over. But that's when X Dogs came into town too. So they won 4 championships right away. Kind of caught everybody off guard.
Yeah, that was a team who, they started out in another league, and then they came down to Washington County, and very quickly did they take over. People thought the ADR takeover was wild. The X Dogs one was just as crazy, and they won more in a row than ADR did.
Correct. Yeah, 4 in a row. They had this little short, white, bald-headed guy that just ran around and threw touchdown passes and then dropped to a knee and prayed to Jesus before it was cool, like Tim Tebow. Guy named Matt Eisenberg, but he's been a solid dude. We just met for lunch last week or the week before, so Matt's been a good guy. Great addition to our league. Glad they come down every week and play. X Dogs has been a competitive team over the last 15 years, I would say. How long is that? Jeez, Peach. 2006?
Yeah, we got a statistic last season where I mentioned that they had made the semifinals every single season they've been in county.
I mean, they're a legit team. They play hard. They might not have the most guys, but they all know their role and play you tough every game.
Yeah. And that's the thing about it. Like they're consistently good. A lot of people were sleeping on them going into playoffs last year, and they ended up having a really good run. That game against Misfits in the semifinals, that could have gone either way with those two. It was only a 2-point game at the very end. Very close and competitive game. The X Dogs were so close to pulling that victory off. And you look at over the years, they're always there. And the rivalry between the two of you has been just amazing to watch. You got to think about it. We're talking a 13-year war right now between 2 franchises that have battled it out for at least a spot in the semifinals, if not the championship. They faced off before in the championship, 5 different times? Like, for a while there, it was a bi-yearly tradition to see an X Dogs Broad Axe championship.
Well, if you think about this year, we were, 1 touchdown pass, at the end of the Misfits game from playing X Dogs again in the semifinals. So, that could have added another game to it.
Yeah, and it's crazy to think, how this rivalry's lasted so long, how it's grown over the years. But I have a question for you, Tom. Before I ask you about your times and battles of this team, we got to share a photo that I think a lot of people have never seen before. I think you see it right now, Tom. I just put it up. We're going old school, 2007. You are all they got, all they need. Tom Hoffman, a Red Knight.
Yeah, well, let's just put it this way. That was when Andy was playing down in Baltimore, his team in Baltimore. The competition was a little bit better than our league at sometimes. And his team would always travel. So Andy and I got along a little bit better when we weren't playing in the same league. So I would take some Miller Lite guys and go down and help his team out. And at the same time, it would help my guys out too, because we got more experience, more playing time. We played down on the turf in Baltimore. We played at Essex Community College and Dundalk Community College, two really nice facilities down there. Andy had a good group of guys back then and didn't mind playing with. Guys like Greg Hunt and oh man, there was a couple guys. A guy named Vinny. He had a receiver that was a lot of fun. Derwin and Kenny, and those guys came up and played with us in a tournament when we played at Williamsport, and then we finished it off at Marty Snook, and we actually won the. It was the early on setting of the Mason-Dixon Invitational. Way back when we played at Williamsport High School, and then we came back and finished at Marty Snook. And that was the year we won with the help of some of his guys. He still got that trophy, I believe. But yeah. But once he came to our league, then I kind of cut ties a little bit. There was no more kind of jumping from my team to play with his team once they came into our league. The rivalry got a little bit more bitter then, I guess.
I was wondering what word he was going to go with.
Hey, it's brotherly love at the end of the day.
Yep. So, like I said, when he was playing in a different league, I didn't mind helping him out and getting some. Plus, I got older, man. I mean, it's hard to double up, and early on I was all about the experience, and then later on I'm like, I feel like getting out of bed this weekend. So. But
yeah,
the one thing about Andy, I mean, him being a tournament director, his team was usually almost always in the tournament itself. So, believe me, it wasn't for lack of him asking me to play. It was just I just got to a point where I'd rather play with my own guys, my own team, because no matter how we did, whether it was good or bad, I would always say, man, I think I would have just had more fun if my team was here playing. And, so that's where I'll leave that.
So right now we go back, X-Dogs, Red Knights, Broad Axe, well, Miller Lite back then still. This was where the league was in 2011. And then you had a lot of people in there still, like the Bulldogs, who had came from Mack Truck way back in the day. They had a long longevity in the league. You saw them and you saw the PG Hitmen, memories of both teams, because the Hitmen, people forget, they had a long lifespan too. In fact, it could be argued the lineage of PG Hitmen / Gold's Gym, it goes back to 1996, 1997, and it finally ended with the death of the program last season.
Right.
Because you had a lot of guys who played on that team way back with the Storm who were also on the Hitmen and Gold's Gym back in the day. There was a lot of connections between those franchises.
But is the death of the program the birth of the Demons?
We'll see what happens soon with the Demons, but I feel like with Sean Parker as the guy now,
True.
this is not the same Cram. This is new Cram.
Yeah,
better Cram.
Sean Parker's probably he's one of the most talented guys I've seen playing our league, and probably over my span of playing my whole career. That dude's a legit receiver. Seems like a good dude. So I wish him the best. I'm like you. I'm kind of curious to see what they bring to the table.
I am too. Like, I'm really excited to see what the Demons are. Unfortunately, we won't get an opportunity to see it, but
Oh,
I feel like we'll see what happens. We're trying to figure something out to get the Demons out there very soon. We'll see how it goes. They won the New Year's Invitational back on January 2nd, defeating the Immortals and defeating Ruckus in the championship. And you look at the way they just dismantled Ruckus in that championship game, and not just a Ruckus team that was Ruckus, but one that was essentially an all-star team for the most part. You looked at they had Orsini, they had T. Spence, they had Sean Moats. There's a lot of years of valuable experience on that team. They had up-and-comers like BJ on the team. That was a pretty good Ruckus team.
Who was quarterbacking for Ruckus?
So they started out with Marty at the
Okay.
beginning. But from what I've been told, Marty is pure chaos now.
Really?
That's what I was hearing about a month or two ago.
Wow.
But you never know day to day around this place.
I was going to say, everybody's a free agent, aren't they?
not everybody.
Not Ross Aroni. He's not a free agent.
But, I'm really excited to see what they do. But you look back at those teams like back then, like the Hitmen / Gold's Gym and Bulldog / Mack Truck. Your memories of those teams, because they had a lifespan all throughout the 2000s. That began with the late 90s. They competed for championships. People forget Bulldogs. They appeared in the 2010 championship against X-Dogs. Like, they were in the championship before they folded.
Bulldogs will have several Hall of Famers before it all goes down. I mean, they had a pretty good coach. His name's blowing my mind, but he kept them all organized. Like I said, Mike Lee was on that team, Tony Dixon. They had a quarterback named Greg Thomas that was a tall, lanky dude. He reminded me of Tecmo Bowl. He would roll around the pocket, and then he'd chuck it 60 yards in the air, and then they always had a receiver down there to catch it. Very talented, very athletic. Their defense was led by, their defense line was probably one of the hardest defense lines I've ever gone against. That includes like the Packers and the Metro Dogs and even the teams now. Mike Lee was on that line. They had this state cop named Sam Hess, who was all muscle, big white guy. Oh my God, he was just a freaking animal. Believe it or not, he came from Hancock. I think he's like the all-time leading rusher at Hancock. Somehow played running back for them because I think he told him what he was going to do, and they let him do it. He had a cousin named Glenn. Forget Glenn's last name, but he was an asshole. He punch you in the face on purpose, and would say, "What are you going to do about it?" And we got in plenty of scuffles with him through the years. And then little Corey Russ was their defensive end. Corey played on my team this year. He was kind of the old guy out there, but Corey back in the day was about 5 foot. We'll give him 5'6", 5'7", coming off the edge. Another guy that's all muscle, and he would talk to you back then, and kind of short and stocky, and like you say, just a little meatball coming off the edge, and was quick. And the guy in the middle was Larry Winston. Larry Winston is a high school football coach at North High right now, but he would play middle linebacker, and he was like Ray Lewis of the flag football league. Dude was just sideline to sideline. He would blitz, he would cover, he would do a little bit of everything. Then they had a safety from Shepherd College, and was Jason something, I forget his last name. I'm bad with names right now, but if I had them all written down, this dude was a stud safety. So anything up in the air, he was a ball. He was always around it. And like I say, one of my favorite cornerbacks was Tony Dixon. We played Little League together. He was 12, I was 9. He was like a grown man playing Little League. But I've known him, ever since then. And he was on our team. He was on their team, and then he came back to my team. But, TD. Everybody called him Goose back then, but he was one of the best cornerbacks in the league, and they were good. Like they were really, really good and physical. And like I say, I mean, I'm not sure how X Dogs beat them, but somehow when X Dogs came down, they beat them, and then Bulldogs kind of. I think Greg ended up getting married and moving away, their quarterback, and yeah, they were getting a little bit older, and parts started going this way and that way, but they were a really good team back in that time frame.
Yeah. Memories of Gold's Gym / PG Hitmen, which became Storm, then Nighthawks, and we'll get to that part later.
Yeah, they were Gold's Gym at first. They were kind of like, I don't want to knock them because it was always competitive, but it was, a game you should win. You know what I mean? Like that, they were kind of like they would put a list up in Gold's Gym and recruit guys that way. So
that's how Don Brown signed up, he said.
Yep. I mean, so they might have had a mismatch of guy. Like I can remember going through the handshake line and seeing a guy I went to high school with who didn't get to play one single play during the game. And I was like, his guy's name was Chad Woods. And I said, Chad, what are you doing playing with him? I said, why don't you come play with us? And he's like, well, I saw a sign at the gym and just wanted to play some football and I wanted to come out, but I didn't really know anybody. So it was, back then you could switch teams. And so I stole him right away. He ended up being our starting safety. They had no clue what he could do, what he was capable of, because, they had been around, they had people in certain spots, but I forget that until they had Dave, God, I'm bad with names right now. Dave ended up being the coach when they became PG Hitman. But until he came around, they had, it was like a player coach kind of putting people in certain spots. He was a nice enough guy, but, it didn't seem like he was real football savvy. It was more of it was like a YMCA type of thing where they were just trying to get people out and get some recreation and stuff. So, I mean, Don would be able to indulge on that a little bit more, but they were competitive, but I wouldn't say they were. I mean, one or two of those years, one year we played them in a championship game, but other than that, they didn't really have too many winning seasons, I would say.
Yeah, and you take a look at what would happen around that same time when the decade began. You had underdogs who I don't think they won a single game, did they?
I don't even remember underdogs because they were a flash in the pan. I mean, they're another white T-shirt kind of team that showed up. I mean, I would rather talk about a team like Renegades. They came out. They looked like they had USC Trojan kind of jerseys. They
gave him Sean Moats.
Yeah. Oh, is that who he started with?
Yep. Sean Moats was a Renegade.
Okay. Renegades. Yep. That was my buddy Troy Butts played for us. Troy was more of a kick returner, punt returner, but he was a jack of all trades. He started that team because he thought he wanted to play quarterback. Troy would remind me of your cousin Daniel a little bit, where he would have been better suited to play like linebacker or safety or even cornerback, but wanted to play quarterback on offense. But he was definitely more of a defensive guy. But props to him. He started a team, ran the team. They had a couple guys from Boozbar, a guy named Dwayne Klein. Denny Rexroad helped sponsor them, getting the money and stuff. But they were a mismatch of guys too. They were kind of country guys with a couple of city boys, because at one point Mike Lee went and played with them for a while too. Not sure why Mike Lee switched teams on me so many times, but he said he's back for forever now. But I love Big Mike. But yeah, they had a mismatch of guys. And at one point when we were Miller Lite, we broke the huddle and we look over and there's an all-out brawl on their sideline. Well, we're like, oh shit, so we're ready to run over and start fighting. Well, then we realized it was none of our guys. It was just a fight between their own team. We're like, okay, let them just finish that out on their own. Like, no need for us to get involved because, like I said, it wasn't any of our guys like into it. So, but they were funny. I'm trying to think of some of the other teams. Like you said, back in the day, Crazy Horse was really good. Ran by Dougie Kettler, and G. Ingram was their quarterback. And then there was a couple of years where
of mine, actually.
What's that?
GE is actually like a third or fourth cousin of mine.
Okay.
Yeah. My dad always said that his biggest regret was not being able to get GE to be his quarterback.
I mean, he's a Hall of Famer. He's a stud. Like I said, when I first started playing in the league, they were the team to beat. Crazy Horse had won several championships, and I mean, he ran the offense. Dougie Kettler was a middle linebacker, and he ran the defense. Him and Steve Alton, who was another Hall of Famer. They always had a really good D line, and GE, probably didn't have the flashiest of receivers. Dwayne Freeman was one of them. He was definitely a flashy receiver because he went to University of Tennessee. So he's a legit. Yeah, he could fly. But he was good. They had a guy named, I think it was Scott Ricker, was one receiver. Then they had a couple little white guys, a little guy named Greg King. They called him Bingo. He would catch a lot of over the middle passes and stuff, but they were really good back then. Then those guys and Bulldogs they'd be tough. And there for a while, GE split off and made Mack Truck. And I think I got them on the list here of them winning the championship in 2003. And while he split off, I think Steve Alton played quarterback for Crazy Horse, and they were still pretty decent. Crazy Horse, have you ever heard of a guy named Travis Badgett?
Name sounds extremely familiar.
His son is the quarterback at Shepherd right now, Tyson Badgett.
Oh, nice.
Travis Badgett is a national arm wrestling champion. This guy is an animal. If you ever get a chance, YouTube him sometime. But he was a big left-handed dude. He actually played baseball at Shepherd. But he was one of them guys that can play every single position on the field if you want him to. He could play O-line, D-line, linebacker, receiver, tight end. He played quarterback for him one year. I think they were undefeated. They went into the championship game, and who was this against? It was probably against Mack Truck, because it wasn't against us. I remember being there watching. So he had all these like cameras following him around. They were doing a documentary about him being a arm wrestler guy, and like I say, he's the face of arm wrestling. And he ends up throwing 4 interceptions. They get smoked. Man, was Dougie Kettler pissed. That dude was a beast all year long. And like I say, because all the hype and all the cameras around him, yeah, he ended up throwing 4 picks, and they got smoked in the championship game.
Damn. I bet that film was hella fire, though.
Oh, yeah, no doubt. But, yeah, look up Travis Badgett on YouTube sometime. He's a freak.
I think we had one of my favorite Tom Hoffman memories was when you were mic'd up against Survivors in the spring 2016 playoffs.
That's freaking a classic video right there.
Oh, my God. That video is hilarious.
We might have to repost that on the page here just to.
It will be 5 years
views
very soon since that game.
That was spring leg. That was at South High. I remember getting out of my car and rolling that cooler to the field. Mert was getting there from Altoona. Boy, Mert.
Good old Mert, man.
We would just smoke some people when he was there.
That man was somebody who, I think you made the comparison once. Grable is a little more merciful after he's beaten you up. Mert just looks at you, he smirks at you, and says, I'm going to run it up.
Yep.
Like
Rabel was a sportsman where he'd say, he'd look the next week or the next game and not want to get anybody hurt or himself hurt. So he said, fellas, I'm just going to pull my flag and we'll run this clock out. Everybody was like, okay with that. But with Murdy, he's like, with that Altoona, PA accent, fuck him. We're just going to throw it up and score again.
Both of them have done that to the world.
One of my, Mert's final game in county, crazy to think about. It'll be 3 years in June since Mert's final game in county. And that game was against the Brunswick Assassins. I remember because Ruckus Survivors got done way early because that was the game where Buckley broke his leg on a run he had. And so with that done early, we were kind of just waiting around. Brunswick's out there. They got a full 30. They're warming up. They're on the field practicing. They're throwing the ball. I start walking around, talking to a couple of the players, and we're all like, man, where's Broadaxe? Yeah, where's Broadaxe at? Are they going to show up today? Do they got anybody? And, like some of them, like Brian and them were talking, like, I think we have a shot here. Like, we're prepared. They're not here yet. And there's a glimpse of hope for Brunswick that they could beat Broadaxe in this game. And, we're sitting there 5 minutes before kickoff. I think I see Tom roll up. And then I see more cars coming behind him. It was as if the whole squad just rolled in at that moment. They were at the Broadaxe for a breakfast special. They had to get a drink in. They had to get their food in to get ready for the game.
Like, all right, guys, we got to go for real. For real this time. We have
the waitress took a while to get the check out to him.
I'll probably just put the whole thing on his tab.
Yeah, because I just got it like that.
Y'all rolled up and you beat them 58-0.
Oh my gosh.
And at 52-0, these mofos go for 2 and run a reverse pass. And I'm not kidding, a double reverse. They pitched it to Zeke, who pitched it to Joey, I think, or something like that, who pitched it back to Mert, who throws it in the end zone for 2.
That sounds like something Pap would draw up in the dirt.
Like, they literally rolled up and just beat the living hell out of Brunswick and then left.
Poor Brian Swagger.
Right back to the bar.
Oh, my God.
We'll be right back.
Oh.
Yeah, hold our table. We'll be back. We got to take care of some business real quick.
We'll be right back.
Man, hey, shout out to you all, man. Like, mad respect to Broadaxe, respect to Miller Lite.
Appreciate it.
Like, people can say what they want.
To me,
you can make
to me, Broadaxe is the standard for Washington County.
They are. Like, we can talk.
Oh, Ross, you're gonna make me cry a little bit.
That's why Ross went with blue for the Warriors. He was inspired by you guys.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, that's a lot.
Yeah, I ain't believing that one.
Yeah. Nah, they are.
Oh man. Oh man. But let's go back to where the league was before I came back. Fall 2013, Washington County's in a weird place. You have Miller Lite, Red Knights, X-Dogs, 3 teams that competed on the B circuit. And in your case, Tom, you guys played some A for a bit too. Like, I remember you all played A in Hagerstown in 2016. People forget about that.
Yeah, I mean, that was one of those.
Competing in A.
Right. And I mean, we could have played B. If we would have played the B that weekend, there wouldn't have been enough A teams anyway. So, it was like, we'll kind of take one for the team here and play up in A. I mean, that was kind of the year. We had Chili that year, and he ended up getting real frustrated with us because, here we had smoked everybody all year, and then when we played that, we were, obviously against better competition. We were right in the ball games. We were losing, 20-6 or 18 to, maybe by 2 touchdowns, and but a lot of those games we were within a touchdown most of the game, and then the other team scored late. But and I feel like we still didn't have everybody show up to those tournaments back then either. But yeah, I mean, it was sort of like, what's the point of winning the B bracket after we just won our league championship and beat everybody then? So, but yeah.
We go back to that season. Like I said, Broad competed for years. X Dogs, they have competed on the B circuit. Red Knights were competing. But then you look beyond that 2013 season, the only other team that was playing was Storm.
Correct.
And that was the only season Storm played. And so as a result, at the end of the 2013 season, Washington County, who at one point, there was 12 teams sometimes, 10 teams, give or take, back in the 90s and 2000s. Like, the league was booming for many years.
Right.
But by 2013, the league was in a position where going into the fall 14, was there any possibility of having no league, Tom?
Oh, I mean, there was definitely a possibility. I mean, what kind of league would it have been if it would have just dropped to 3 teams and just been us, Red Knights, and X Dogs? I mean, and that's what, me, Matt, and Andy would meet up, and we're like, man, we got to do something here. So, like you say, that's about the time we did the Hall of Fame thing, and Andy was actually running a basketball league at that time at the fairgrounds, and kind of put out some interest as far as that goes, because Dustin Mitchell had a team in the basketball league, and he, I think he had always played in the 4-on-4 passing league at Pangborn Park, and was kind of interested in getting his Smithsburg guys together and bringing a team out. So, with Ruckus, then program came, and I think
the Storm guys became Nighthawks. That was the next evolution of that lineage.
Okay. So like I say, I mean, a couple of those guys making a team, and I think we went from 4 to right back to 6, and here lately we've always had 7 or 8, 9 or 10. You know what I mean? Like, we've been going pretty strong as far as that goes. Of course, you always get it. What was the team? I always call them the white T-shirts, but I always forget their names. They show up for a game here and there, and it's like they fold up. And I'd always give Andy a hard time because he'd always encourage new teams to get in, and I'm like, why do you let these teams in if they, they don't have jerseys, they haven't paid, you know what I mean? I'm not blaming it.
Top Soldiers, Doom
Top
Squad.
Soldiers, that's the Doom Squad. It's like,
I remember Top Soldiers. They came out wearing Andy's Game Time Hagerstown shirts.
Exactly.
And Doom Squad, people forget, they were wearing Don Brown's original Spartan jerseys.
Right.
There was even some Food Lion jerseys thrown in there. Like,
yeah, exactly. And I think they even had a girl play, and Matt Ryan tried to rush on her and pad his stats and get all these sacks.
Yeah, remember the game against you all? They had nobody from their team at one point playing defense.
Yeah, we were playing all-star team.
Yeah, you guys were basically playing the OG TBT.
Right.
But a lot of random guys were just all out there playing against Broad X in that game.
It was like a free for all. Yeah.
He came up there and it was like, can I do it? I was like, man, don't get hurt. I can tell you that.
I mean, I'll tell you, I'd be kind of mad if one of my star players did get injured playing in that game, honestly.
From my perspective, my guys are all there ready to play. So it's like, we might as well get some work in. You're not just going to, pack up and leave. You're pumped to play a game.
Oh,
what's that, Ross?
I think that was my second question to him, was if Tom's cool with it.
Right.
Don't go get hurt.
Yep.
I ain't gonna lie, man. I felt bad for Doom Squad. I thought about going out there and coaching to myself, and I thought about, man, I could have done if they would have let me run the team, it would have been different.
I don't know if there's much hope for them at all.
Nah.
They were called Doom Squad for a reason.
Yeah.
I don't think there's any trace of them whatsoever, right? Other than
There's no lineage. I do remember
RJ
after.
played for them.
Well, RJ played for me too. He played for you. He played.
Well,
for
what's the kid's name that's a quarterback for Bees now and was pure
Devin
chaos?
Redmond or Devin Redmond? Yeah,
He was on their team because I remember trying to steal him. And
a couple of them were. Yeah.
Okay.
Well, like I remember after that season, and I don't usually disclose this stuff. I'm going to disclose it on here because this is the farewell show. I was added to a group chat by some of their guys, and they had planned on putting in a team in Washington County for the spring 2019 season. And the first thing they said was they wanted a name that was new and original and bold and intimidating. And in the group chat, they voted that the name they want to go for was Rampage.
Because that's original.
Yeah. I mean, if that had happened, we could have set up a game between, their Rampage against Sean Moats' Renegades team.
Right. There you go.
Oh, man. Good times. Real good times. But anyways, Tom, any other thing you want to add tonight? We're going to get ready, and I'm going to transition from your story in county. I'm going to tell mine. We're going to talk about the journey I've had the last 7 years. Anything you want to add to tonight's episode?
Nope. I just thank you, Joey, for everything you've done in your time. Good luck moving on. I'm sure you'll be back at some point. But like I say, I appreciate all your hard work over the years. Like I say, I wish we could have paid you a little bit better and made you financially wealthy like myself being president. I'm freaking rich, anybody out there that believes that, I'll toss you another one. But anyway, I just want to wish you well. Appreciate what you did and what you're doing, and just best of luck to you, my man.
Thank you, Tom. I really appreciate it. I thank you all for all the years that you allow me to be up here and do the stuff we've done up here for years, whether it be me running a team, playing on a team, filming games. I'll never forget the first game I did live stream was that Broad Axe and Red Knights game, May 21st, 2017. Broad Axe is in dire straits. There's no Mert. They got to go to the retirement home and pick up Don Tapley along the way. Let's talk about that game. My first game live streamed. Memories of that Broad Axe Red Knights game.
I mean, we had a rough first half. Don had never even practiced with us before. You talk about the league history. He played for the Marauders back in the day, and he was a stud quarterback, played at Williamsport High School, went to Shepherd College, came out, played with the Marauders for several years, won a couple championships with them. Had since got married, had 2 kids, retired from playing flag football. And I run into him umpiring baseball games, high school baseball games. And we're riding to Hancock one day to do a Hancock game. And he said, "Man, brother, if you're ever in a pinch," he goes, "I can still run. I can still throw it a little bit. So give me a holler if you ever need me." So, yeah, Mert I think he was having a second kid and was having issues with the wife getting down here to play. So I was like, shit, what am I going to do? So it's like, let's give Don a call and see if he'll want to come out. So old Tapley, he didn't know our go-to receivers. It was like, throw it to Zeke. You know what I mean? Like, when in a pinch, throw it to him.
For some quarterbacks, though, it's difficult to throw to Zeke for some reason.
Oh, absolutely. But like I said, we had a rough first half, and our defense kept us in the game. And for some reason, Andy kept us in the game. They had some, time management difficulties there at the end that,
I'll
opened
never
the door
forget the
for us.
read option Andy called with himself as the lead rusher.
Yeah, sometimes you got to wonder. But anyway, I'm standing there on the sideline like, what in the world is he doing? But long story short, walk off with Don Tapley, man. He rushes right up the middle, missed flag, and he goes for a touchdown and, celebrating from then. That was freaking awesome, man. I think Merck came back later in that season and we ended up winning the Spring League Championship, if I'm not mistaken.
Yep.
Because I remember Tapley would still come out to our games after that. And he was even in our championship picture at the end of the season.
I remember that was an awesome run Broadax had. That was part of that 40-game winning streak. And like I said, that was the game that made me say, this is what I want to do. Because I sat back there and, you go back and watch it. It's an awkward broadcast. I wasn't sure what I was saying or doing. I didn't know what to do. And as it went on, I got more comfortable. There was one point where I interfered with Don's vision on a play. And I remember Don yelled at me. Tom's yelling at Don. It all escalated and I felt horrible. I was like, oh my God, I'm messing up this whole game right now.
Well,
but it's
just like playing where you got to get used to being on the field and knowing, what plays are coming up. You're got to be one step ahead, just like we are as playing the game. You know what I mean? Like
exactly.
What can go wrong will go wrong. So,
I mean, I've seen guys in the secondary thinking that they're a safety and that no one can see them. And then as soon as the play starts, the ball's going right to them. They're running and tripping and falling over.
Yep.
Oh, man. But anyways, Tom, I appreciate you, man. Thank you for coming on tonight. Happy, we talked about it, 50 years of Washington County. It'll be entering 51 this year coming up, 52-ish. It's been a great run the league has had. I look forward, like I said, if anybody has any old photos, jerseys, videos, anything like that, newspaper clippings, we need to I feel like the league needs a physical Hall of Fame.
Yeah, that'd be nice.
Even if it's a storage unit somewhere.
You'd think the county would hook us up at some point, but they wouldn't even let us put the plaques on the bathrooms or on the pavilion at the Marty Snook. So, they're constantly looking to kick us off that field any chance they get. So, yeah, it would be nice to have an actual physical Washington County Flag Football Hall of Fame. And that's been said to me before, but it's like, well, I don't know. It's like, where do you put it? So I'd be open to it. We just need to figure it out.
I say at some point, I love to see down the line, somebody needs to invest in that private land idea. We've been saying with a clubhouse and a field, and then I feel like everything will be set for life.
But it should be like one of those Heisman Trophy commercials where they all have that house. It could be a Hall of Fame house. You know what I mean? So we just need to fix up a shithole and make it a Hall of Fame house and place everybody that's in the Hall of Fame can go. And of course, I wouldn't be able to hang out there because I'm not in the Hall of Fame yet. But or who knows if I'll ever make it in there. But anyway, I mean, quick announcement about that is Hall of Fame and obviously the league awards just kind of put everything on hold this year because of COVID. With the Hall of Fame, most of those guys are older guys. Didn't want to put them in jeopardy. And that's been explained to them too. And they're all pretty cool with that. So I don't know if it's maybe a summertime Hall of Fame get together / league awards or not, but Definitely just on hold right now. It's not like we're not going to pick up and go with that. So COVID sucks. Hopefully it's on its way out. And we can get back to normal and do our Hall of Fame and league awards and all that fun stuff.
I hope so too. Like, it's a shame that there's no ceremony this year. I've had a great time at the ceremonies.
I've never been one.
I've been to about 3 so far. You know, it's great. You see the old guys come together, talk about their glory days. There's a nice little meal served. There's beer. It's a good, fun time. I had a great time. You know, shout out to you, Tom, and the Broad X guys for taking me out last year after the event. It was a really good time hanging out with you guys over at Mike's Tavern. I enjoyed it. It was a good, like, that's the love of the league, man. Like, there's a lot of love in this league, and I appreciate all that you guys have done and maintaining this league in the last 30 years. Because, you know, the last 30 years, the one constant has been Broad Axe / Miller Lite.
I wouldn't say 30 years, but at least 20 years.
Y'all go back to 92, though, you once told me. Like, you all go.
Well, but I mean, that was before me, but yeah.
The OGs.
Yeah, they were there. They were around, but I came later. I wasn't until 99-ish, 2000. So,
man, you had that futures contract, though.
Yeah, something like that. But no, I appreciate it, Joey. God willing, I'm gonna keep doing it. I know not everybody's always happy with me, but believe it or not, I'm trying to do what's the best thing for the league, keeping it going. I'm not getting any younger, so if there's any new guys that want to step up and take this thing over, they're more than welcome. But until then, I'm gonna keep plugging away, trying to do the best I can.
Hey, let me see where I'm at in a couple years. I might take you up on that offer.
Okay, 10-4.
We'll see where things go with Team Blunt Talk in the Washington County Flag Football League. Thank you for coming on tonight, Tom. We appreciate you, man. We'll see you on the field this upcoming spring. Love to see Broad X back out on the circuit soon. Like,
Absolutely.
You guys belong back out there.
OC 2021, can't wait, man. We were all set to go last year, and the plug got pulled. So, yeah, we're all about going this year. So, hopefully it happens, and we'll definitely be in our spring league. So,
looking forward to it, Tom.
All right, guys. Take care. Thanks for everything. Ross Roney, I'll see you later, buddy.
Yeah, man. I'll see you around.
See you,
All
Tom.
right, boys. See you guys.
Tom Hoffman joining us. And, you know, we left off at 2013. 2014 was the first year I joined. Story with me was, for years, me and my cousin Daniel had always talked about making our own football team. Because, you know, I was inspired by my dad talking about how he took his team of backyard football players, and because back in the day, that's how they started. They were a backyard football team that would meet up with different teams across the area. They go to Mount Airy and play. They drive to Harper's Ferry and play. And then Dad decided, you know what? Why don't we enter a legitimate league and see what we could do? You know, semi-pro was a little expensive and, you know, hard to maintain at the time. Hard to say if they could have done doing tackle instead. But, you know, I try to do the same thing. You know, me and Daniel, we went out. We tried to find the best talent. Initially, we wanted to compete against my dad's Turkey Bowl team. So we went out. We got some good guys. And we built a little bit of core. And then over time, we started hosting these games up in Boonesboro, up down Inwood. And these games is how we recruited. We saw the talent there, and we said, okay, we got these guys, this guy. We bring them on. We see what we can do with them. And I remember for me, it all began the night I got arrested for breaking into the Fredericktown Mall. I got arrested. 2 days later, I get fired from my job. I remember my friend's dad, shout out Mr. Jasek, took me out to a bar with him and the other guys after we all got arrested. And I was about, what, fifth or sixth tall, blue moon deep, when Daniel called me up and said, Joey, I know you lost your job. I know you don't got much going for you. Come coach our flag football team. Me and our Uncle Ben's got something going. We're going to make this team work. And, you know, it's going to be lit. It's going to be legit. I'm paraphrasing now. He didn't say that at all. No, he didn't say that. And you know what? Initially, I hopped on. I was offensive coordinator.
That's some family shit, though.
It was family shit, yeah. Like Ben wanted to start a new flag football team. And, you know, because he hadn't been in charge of any team before. He wanted to give it a shot his way.
Right.
You know, he brought in Daniel to be a GM because Daniel knew hella talent across the area. Like Daniel that's the one thing I will say, Daniel Taylor is one of the best recruiters in Washington County. When you look at the guys he brought in with survivors over time. Say what you want about him as a quarterback, one of the best recruiters that the league ever had in the last couple of years. But nobody talks about him because they don't know the guys he brought in. And I'll tell you more about them in a moment.
Nobody knows him as a recruiter.
They just know him as the quarterback, yeah. And, you know, early on with survivors, we were a fucking clusterfuck, to say the least. I remember that first season, we initially hired a guy by the name of Trey Knight as our head coach. He was BAAA football coach for years. My uncle thought that his knowledge of BAAA youth football would help us win in 9-man flag football because it's the same thing. You know, it's football. You know, there's no difference. 9-man adult. You know, we came out, we had his son Nick at quarterback. Nick was this hot young kid who was fast and furious, and we thought we were going to come in and tear up the league. I remember we came up, we had our white T-shirts on, our jerseys weren't in yet, and we saw Miller Lite. And I remembered Miller Lite when I was a kid.
Isn't there film of this game?
There is film of this game. I shot the first Survivors game.
I'm pretty sure
I was filming games before it was live.
Right.
We went up there. We saw Miller Lite. They had the blue jerseys. They had the same jerseys they wore when I was a kid. And I was like, here we go. The one team my dad said he struggled with the most. The one team that gave him hell. We're about to beat them. These slow, old guys don't stand a chance against us. They're fat. They're old. Some of them are bald. They ain't going to do nothing. We got youth. We had a hell of youth. The average age of our players was 20. We had speed. We were fast. We were tough. And we came out. Nick ran the ball. He got sacked. Then he ran again. He got sacked. Then he threw the ball up and got picked. And then they scored. And then went 3 and out. And then on a punt return, Nick got wiped out by a defender. He looked up at us and said, why didn't you tell me he was coming? And 2 weeks later, he was done. He was done. Don't think I heard from him ever again. But, you know, I heard he was a Warrior at one point. Can you verify that?
He was a Warrior at one point.
Good times. And then, you know, we lost 32-6. But, you know, Daniel struggled a little bit. But then at the end, we brought in RJ. And, you know, RJ, he was my dad's quarterback back in the day. And you know what? We said we can build around RJ. Then the next week, Ben wanted to be quarterback. Ben ran the offense. I remember my memories of the first time we played Ruckus. I said, these are a bunch of slow-ass, skinny white dudes. They ain't going to do shit. We have no problem with these guys. We should be able to thrash them. They're nothing. We got size. We got speed. There's no way we can lose. I remember we had Paul and Alan on the line, and Paul told me that Ben was calling plays, and Ben would get to the line, and he looked at the line and said, going left. And then he'd say, if he was going right, he'd say, going right. And you know what they did? They went left and they went right. Ben had a team record for all-purpose yards, 49 overall, 2 of 12 passing, 17 yards and a pick. But he had 32 rushing yards. And Ruckus beat us 21-0. I was hungover on the sidelines. It was not a good day. But you know what? The next week, we took on the Red Knights. You know what I said? We came up to the field. Me and my uncle were walking. We're ready. We got RJ at quarterback. We feel like we got something going. Yeah, he had a good practice. And we're sitting there, me and my Uncle Ben, and we see this guy at quarterback, this really big dude. And we're like, and my uncle's like, oh, look at him. He's big. He's slow. We should be able to get him. He ain't got nothing. And you know what happened on the first play of the game? That big guy dropped back, and he found Mikey Scunion wide open for a touchdown. And you know what happened the second play of the game? We threw a pick six. But you know what happened when the Knights got the ball back on the second possession? He found Scunion across the middle again. Touchdown, Red Knights. 21-0. 2 plays of offense. He ate us alive. We weren't ready. We were not ready. But you know what? We didn't give up. The next week, we made the signing of the century. We made the biggest heist in the history of Washington County. We got Dontel Watts to jump from Nighthawks to Survivors. Yeah.
All right.
And we took on the X-Dogs. And I remember I said, the X-Dogs, these guys don't look that good. And then George Nunn tore us up apart, and then they benched George and put Matt in. And well, I guess Matt put himself in. And I said, well, they got this short, stocky dude playing quarterback. We should be able to get him. Man. They put up 49. Man. We had 6. You know why? Because Nick had an 80-yard run where they couldn't pull his flags. Because prior to the game, he put tree sap in those sons of bitches, and they couldn't get the flags. Yes. He told us after the game that he had tree sap in the. This was at Marty Snow.
He went across the road and found some sap.
He got some tree sap and he put it in the flags, and the X-Dogs couldn't pull his flags at all, and that's how we got our early score.
Back before they checked flags.
Oh yeah, back then you didn't check flags. You just assumed that they weren't going to put tree sap on them.
Nobody said anything.
X-Dogs. I mean, Matt years later when I told him about it, he was like, "I was wondering how we couldn't pull his flags."
That's wild.
I'm like, yeah. That was our only touchdown of the game. We benched Nick.
It doesn't even count.
Shortly after because he couldn't throw the ball, so we put Dontel in. Then Dontel threw a pick, and then we put RJ in. RJ threw a pick or 2. No, we weren't that desperate. We put in Daniel Taylor, but not my Daniel Taylor, my cousin, but literally another dude whose name was Daniel Taylor.
Wow.
Yeah, his name literally was Daniel Taylor, and he was from the same city and everything.
Wow.
Yeah. He came in, he threw a pick 6 and never got back in.
Oh,
Final score 49-6. Well, you know what?
It was 49-0.
Nah, come on.
No.
Come on. We needed every advantage we could get back then. And then at the next game, I remember I said I was going to take over as head coach. And then one of the players' uncles kind of pushed in instead. And he said he was head coach. And I said, go ahead. And we lost to Ruckus again. And then got obliterated by Nighthawks again. Then we played Broadaxe and lost 44-0. It was a shit show of a season, to say the least. We were pretty bad. Survivors 0-11. But you know what? We had some good-hearted guys. The failure of Survivors in that first season had a lot more to do with inexperience and lack of chemistry. You had a mix of my uncle's friends. You know, he had Joey, who was my dad's quarterback in the 90s, but he was playing center now. They had RJ. They had my uncle. And while the help was good, and they did well, don't get me wrong, RJ and Joey was two of the better players. But it didn't connect with the younger guys we had who were mostly fresh out of high school. We had 17-year-old Skylar Scherer on the team. We had 6 players who were underage playing for Survivors in 2014. 4 of them went to Musselman. 2 went to Boonesboro. We were just bringing in who we had. Like, we didn't know what the fuck we were doing. But you know what we did? We built a foundation. And for that next season, we went balls to the wall with recruiting. During the off season, we said we needed a line. So we went and brought in the pride of Musselman High School, the former 2-star recruit, scholarship offered. I'm talking about Danny Longerbeam. And you know who else we brought in? We needed a shutdown DB, wide receiver, beast, hybrid, monster that will destroy any receiver or DB he faces. So we brought in Coley Jones. Coley Jones. And to this day, they're both still in the league. We went out, we brought in more players. We souped up our line. We came out that second season. And I remember the first season was so successful. Tom looked at all of us, him and Andy. We were over at the Broadaxe. I remember it was me, Daniel, Dustin, and Earl Thorne. And we all went over to Broadaxe. And that was where Tom and Andy proposed Spring League. And before that, there was never a Spring League in Washington County. And so we said, yeah, we'll do it. Because we want it back on the field immediately. We didn't want to wait till September. Could you imagine nowadays, Ross, waiting 10 months between seasons? Crazy. But that's how it was the first 45 years. And then in spring 15, we played the first ever spring game in Washington County history. Marty Snook Park, Survivors beat the Nighthawks 10-6. We went out, we balled out, we played our asses off. Keon Henderson had a pick 6. Paul Shade had a field goal. We stifled a talented Nighthawks team that entering the season, everybody thought was going to rise up. And they did. Nighthawks are going to have a really good year that year. And you know what? The next week, we came out. We were thinking we were hot shit. We went out and we faced the Red Knights. We gave Andy problems early. It was 7-0 in the second. And then reality sets in. Our pass rush stifled. Secondary exposed. And we go down the same routine and pattern and cycle. It wasn't a good season. It really wasn't. And what really hurt us was we had too many leaders, not enough people to fall in line and do their job. We had 10 people by the end of the season who claimed some kind of captain authority. It was bad. It was a bad structure. Looking back, I take a lot of blame for it because I wasn't knowledgeable back then on running a 9-man team, and I didn't know what to do. And so that second season was such a bad experience for me that I almost quit. I was going to give up after that second season. because I was so frustrated with the whole process. And, I was going to college at the time at UMD. I felt like I wasn't going to have much need for this flag stuff. Then I went to Virginia Beach. I played against Rideout. I played against Blue Chargers. I got to face Mike D and the likes of Lonzel and Rideout and company. And that changed my whole experience. I got to face guys like Pomo on the field. And that made me change the way I viewed the game. That next season, while I wasn't the head coach of Survivors, I stayed on as part of the staff to help out. And, we brought in more guys that season, like Brandon Carasquillo, Brandon Michael, Will Bray, Steven Renner, guys who are still contributors to this day in the league. And we improved. We still have the largest comeback in Washington County history. 21-0 to Market Street Mayhem. Alex Foster's kicking our ass. Fox is out with an injury. And then Foster breaks his fucking leg. Market Street puts somebody else in. Their quarterback throws 5 picks. We win 29-23. That same season, we fought the Red Knights to the brink. We almost beat the Knights, but fell short in overtime because Mikey Scunyon burned us in the end zone again. Scunyon owns Survivors. Every single time. Every time.
Did we ever beat you?
Y'all never could beat the Survivors. Not my Survivors. We'll get to that next chapter in a moment. And at the end of the fall of 15, though, for as successful we were starting to be and better we were getting, there was a lot of dissension in Survivors. There was a lot of divide within Survivors. Some of the team felt this kind of way. Other people on the team felt another way.
Be like that.
And despite the improvements we made that season, like I said, we weren't a terrible team. Yeah, 1 win we had, but we were pretty competitive that season. Ethan French came out at quarterback. He balled out. He did really well. That's a forgotten name in this league. And at the end of that season, while the future of Survivors was different and bleak, I decided I wanted to take time away from being part of a team. So the spring of 16 came around. I started putting in extra effort at work. I wanted to work towards a promotion and a full-time position at my job. And flag football that spring kind of went to the back burner a little bit. I remember that was the first season at South we played again. There was the Survivors Ducks game, which to this date is one of the best ever. Great game. Watch it on YouTube. Survivors Ducks, spring 2016. That's a classic.
Old team versus new team.
Basically, that's when the Ducks were formed. And you know what? Initially, I wasn't on a team. When I came back that spring, I wasn't with a team. I went to the Ducks games. I went to the Survivor games. I was the parent who watched both their kids compete and cheered them both on no matter who they were playing. I still filmed games, That was a period where I was still filming games on my camera.
I was gonna say there was in their footage of Survivor stuff.
I have it on YouTube. We should watch that later.
Like up on top of the hill.
No, that's Top Gun Survivors, the first ever live stream in Washington County history. I sat from my car on top of a hill and just filmed that game. Yeah. No commentary though, because I was shy back then.
It's all quiet.
Yeah. I was a little shy back
We're
then.
not watching that. I'll fall crazy.
That's a bad one, yeah.
I've seen this dude.
And at the end of the season, I sat there and I ended up getting hired on full time by my job. I became a department manager. And flag football kind of was fading off to me. Some people I gotten close with in the game were leaving. I wasn't coaching anymore. I wasn't playing anymore. I didn't have direction. And then one day, I remember Brock Klein posted this advertisement for this alumni football game.
Yep.
And I remember I looked at it and I said, I'm interested, but it sounds like it might be a scam. Like, who does this? Like, who puts together, like, is this really a thing? And I remember Robert Bishop wanted us all to meet at a restaurant at 10 o'clock at night in Hagerstown. As sketchy as it all sounds. Like, and, props to the Kleins for going. I think it was Joe who went and checked that out. And, suddenly there was this momentum for a Boonesboro-Smithsburg football game. And suddenly I said, you know what? I haven't played in 10 years on a tackle team. Why not just go out one more time and let's see what happens,
When I heard about that, we were moving into here.
You're moving in here?
The first word of that was in this garage.
In this garage.
Yep.
A lot of historical moments in this garage.
Literally moving in here.
Oh my God, I look weird on camera right now. I should adjust. But like, I remember that summer practicing with the Warriors, and I remember hearing we're going to face Smithsburg, which had Dustin and most of the Ruckus guys on it. And I got pretty hyped. And that first game at North High in 2016,
Was our best one.
it was so much fun. I remember I enjoyed it so much that I decided, you know what? I might be working full time now, but I kind of want to play this flag football game again. And, that Alumni Bowl is what saved my flag career because I wasn't going to come back that fall.
Speaking of the Warriors, saved your flag career.
Yeah, in a roundabout way. And I remember I decided I wanted to play again and I wanted to get in shape. I knew I wasn't going to be much at first because I wanted to learn a little bit and then get better as time went on. And I had 3 offers. Keith offered me to join the Warriors, but it was after Daniel offered me to join Survivors again. And Danny offered me to, I look so weird like this. God damn, I'm sitting up again. Danny offered me to join Ducks. And, at the time, I didn't want to play on Survivors because I felt like that it was Daniel's team and I didn't really see eye to eye with Daniel on running things. And the Warriors were on the fence. I had heard some talks about you all joining.
Yeah, we were on the fence.
Yeah. And I didn't want to wait. And
we like flag football.
Yeah. And at the time, I was very close to the longer beams. I went to Danny's wedding that summer. Danny had been my coach on the Ducks. I liked the way, or Survivors, I should say. And I liked the way that Danny ran teams. I always thought he was a knowledgeable guy with the football game. And so I joined the Ducks. And that fall, 2016, I began a really brief playing career. And, I think somebody who's better suited to talk about that fall from a Warrior perspective would be Ross Collins. Ross, tell them real quick while I step away for a moment about the Warriors fall 2016. That first season, you all came to the Washington County Flag Football League. And in fact, Ross, here's an even added bonus to that. Make sure to show it to the audience.
I'm usually the guy behind the camera, but here we go. we were trash. And I mean absolute trash. We had no idea what we were doing. Our first game against Ruckus, of all people, like he said, we played the alumni game against Smithsburg, and then the first team we faced off against was Ruckus. For anybody that doesn't know, most Smithsburg played for Ruckus. It was actually Shane Zabubu, who talked us into even getting into the flag thing. Honestly, that's how it started. I remember a couple weeks in, I was like, I'm ready to quit this shit. This shit sucks. But we also played Survivors really well. That was a wild ass game. It was one of the wildest games still to this day I've ever been a part of. There was an ambulance called. All kinds of wild shit. It was a mud bowl. It was wild. But we played Ruckus our first game. We sucked. We were trash. We had 12 people. It was easier to know that we were playing 9-man flag and we had 9 people on the field to count the 3 that were on the sideline. I knew as long as we had 3 on the sideline, we had 9 on the field. That's where it started for us. This isn't my show, though, and Joey's coming back. I just remember putting Joey on his ass when he tried to block for an extra point or some shit. I remember that.
On my ass like hell you did. I got the film, bro. I got the film of that. Another thing I remember.
He shouldn't even try to come back.
Only thing I remember,
I'm
bro.
pretty sure he talked shit right before. That's why I did what I did.
Let's go over that. Like, first and foremost, I know what game you're referencing. Ducks Warriors, Spring 17. You know why? That was my final game.
Was that 17?
That was my final game. 17. Memories of that, my playing career wasn't much to talk about. Part of the issue I had was
what did you say, spring 17?
Spring 17, yeah.
So it was our second season.
Second season.
I remember us hearing about Tacoma. We're like, who the hell is that?
We'll get to that in a moment, actually, yeah. But I remember that fall 16, I wasn't there. I was there for half the season, I want to say, maybe a little over half the season. Toward the end of the season, I was switching shifts at work to make it to county in order to be there. As a player, I didn't do much. Like, I often said, like, I went to the wrong team when I look back at it. And I say that because the Ducks were loaded already at the D-line position.
Right.
Like, they had talented guys. I didn't get along with guys like Stephen Ferguson, who had autonomy on the team. And, I got buried underneath the depth chart with much talented players who were ahead of me. And, I look back at it, I don't regret playing for the Ducks. I had a lot of fun with the Ducks. Like, the Ducks were my second family. I love the Ducks to this day. Yeah. But, I look back at it. Yeah. Like, I look back at it for what I was at the time and where I was as a player. It probably wasn't the best idea for what I was looking for. But I had some good memories, man. Like, we had some good battles in Market Street Mayhem during that time. People forget how good MSM was. And the league, it really changed that fall of 2016. People forget, like, how much it changed that fall. I remember.
Planet Fitness or something, Market Street Mayhem. They all look like they went to the gym.
They all went to Gold's Gym, actually. I remember hearing that a while back. Yeah. And, I look back at, and, I look back over time. And, Market Street, always a great battle. I remember that season, Market Street got to the championship back-to-back seasons. And, they gave Miller Lite Broadaxe a fight in both championship games. Like, Justin Fox with only 13 other teammates put up 26 on them. Yeah. The Broadaxe breaker. And, I remember we played Survivors. It was the first time me and my cousin ever faced off in flag. And look at this boy,
There you go.
good old Jaeger.
Get up there and get coffee.
But like I remember we took on Survivors. Daniel's got an injured knee. They're putting me on the D-line rotation. We're eating them alive. Tyler Bucklew can't guard me. Robert Ridenauer can't guard me. Okay, he knocked me on my ass one play, but I got the best of him the next 2 plays. And, we sacked him 9 times in the first half. And I had one of the sacks. And, we were rubbing it in. We were talking smack. And you would think that we're beating their ass. Like, you know what? I'll admit it. I cheated in that game. I pulled Daniel's flag. It took about 10 steps and then dropped it.
For real.
Yeah. Ran the clock out in the first half. This shit ain't checkers.
Yeah.
I admit to it. And we were just destroying them. And then the second half comes up and there's this guy in a pink hoodie that's all of a sudden lined up at quarterback.
Oh, pink hoodie.
And I look at this guy and I said, okay, he's probably going to be fast, yeah. I blow right by Bucklew, knocking him over. I start charging towards this guy. He steps right at me. I said, big mistake. He makes one cut, breaks both my ankles. I hit the ground. He runs 60 yards down the field. And I said, who is this guy? We didn't know his name. Next drive, he did it again. Our offense sputtered. We couldn't score. This guy was destroying our defense. We couldn't get to him. We couldn't sack this man. Who was this guy? This guy had too much talent, bro. He had too much talent, dude. And that was the day I discovered TJ Williams. And little did we know, but TJ Williams would usher in the new era of the Washington County Flag Football League. And that spring,
can we give him the best recruiter?
He's up there too, one of the best.
Yeah.
Dude, the team he had that we put together, all of the group is a collective that all came together for us to say back in Hagerstown 2016, that original Too Much Talent team.
I was supposed to be on there.
Yeah, that was a good team, bro. Talk about a team that nobody talks about anymore. The original TMT. Like you had the purple TMT, the t-shirts that TJ spray painted everything on there. The original TMT. Like there was a lot of buzz around Tuz back in the day. And that team, we also had Q on it. We had Sean Moats on it. Damian Cason made his debut on there. He got in Jaya Mia's face on the live. Jaya was calling our game, bro. Jaya. And we almost beat the ALU Panthers. And with that, and coupled with the Red Knights getting to the national championship game in B, ushered in the modern era of the Washington County Flag Football League. That next spring, that was when you supposedly knocked me on my ass. Let me tell you how that really happened, Ross Collins.
You went at least 5 yards back, I can tell you that.
And did you block the kick?
I did not.
So guess who did their
I
job?
tried to block the kick with you.
And you did it. And I knocked your brother down too.
Yeah, that don't count.
Takes 2 of the Collins to take on 1 of me. I mean, Lil Warren has a better chance out there than you all do. Might as well put Warren and Maddox on me. Shit, line up Catherine. Line that shit up, Catherine. She probably would.
She probably just left you at me.
Probably. But you look back And, that season, that spring 17 at Marty Snook, I remember I was kind of going through a weird phase. I was not making much progress in the Ducks. My work was kind of faltering. My job wasn't going well.
Right up.
Made a lot of mistakes. And,
Don't ever forget your
the write-ups, man. I
Don't ever
haven't.
forget the write-ups.
I remember the first time I did it was back in the fall of 15. And it was because I needed a hobby for to do something outside of school and work. So I said, okay, let me just write up about the league and just talk about it. And then, as each season went on, everybody kind of was looking forward to it. And the write-ups, they got bigger and bigger and bigger to the point where it took me 8 hours to write one of my last ones that spring of 17. Hey, fuck it, bro. I used to put in time on those things. And, I consider myself the media for the league, but I didn't consider myself to be like a broadcaster. And then I remember that day. It's funny you talk about that day because I remember we played Market Street Mayhem and we played you all that day. And I remember against Market Street, the one moment to me made me kind of want to think twice about playing was watching Danny get his nose broken by one of their D linemen.
Right.
Yeah, American flag shirt. I don't remember who it is anymore.
Holy shit, I don't remember.
He decked Danny right in the nose. And Danny had blood get on down his nose, down his mouth, on his jersey. And Danny kept playing through it. And I remember I sat there. I'm like, man, is this really worth it getting messed up and injured when I'm just a 7th-string D lineman on this team? Am I really going anywhere? And then I remember I started some shit with the Warriors that week. I said Smithsburg was better than you all.
You did start some shit.
And I think I triggered half your locker room in the process. Yeah, it was
Yeah, you did do that.
yeah, a lot of people were upset with me. I remember.
Not me for the record.
Yeah. I remember your brother looking at CJ from the sideline and saying, "This is for you, CJ," as I pancaked him. I remember I helped out CJ when he got hurt, and then he yelled at me afterwards. I remember we beat your all's ass because you all couldn't beat the Ducks.
Man, we couldn't beat anybody.
And I remember
Don't want to give up the dog. We couldn't beat nobody.
y'all lucky you didn't play my Survivors team back in the day. If y'all would have really rolled you. But I sat there and I made a life decision. I sat there for a week. I went to New York City to contemplate my life direction a little bit. And, I thought about some things. Then I came back, hooked up with this girl at her birthday party, woke up the next day with her. And then I went to Flag and shot that Broad Axe Red Knights game. And then, that happened. The magic of that day. The magic of that morning, the magic of that weekend. That was a good fucking game. And, as I sat there and filmed that game, I said, you know what? There's 2 things I want to do. First, I want to hook up with that girl again down on Ballinger Creek. And then I want to go and keep filming these fucking games. And, I looked up and I remember Danny walked up to me. And he was going over the game plan for everything that day against TMT. And I said, Danny, I'm done. He said, what'd you mean? I said, as of last week, I'm officially retired. I was done, just like that. And, it was coming. I knew it was coming. A lot of it was just it wasn't worth the time and energy and effort I was putting in for what I was doing. Like trying to switch off work to be a 7th-string D lineman playing on a flag football, it wasn't worth it. And, filming games, though, on the other hand, I was like, this is fun. This is great. I'm enjoying this way more. 2 things I wanted, to do that and to do her. You know what I did? I did both the next couple of years. And while one didn't work out in the end, here we are today. And thus came the uncut era. The uncut era of the Washington County Flag Football League, when Tyler Spencer, Damian Cason, Dirt Boy all became the voice, the face of social media in county. Dame going in and calling out teams on the corporate page, leading to the creation of the uncut page.
Wasn't their first game against us?
Yeah. They thrashed you guys so badly.
I remember telling him you can't brag about beating the Browns in the league because we were.
I don't know if you guys were the Cleveland Browns or or whether you guys were the Tom Matthews Browns or the Corey Jones Browns. Okay. But
the Warriors do have ties to the original Browns.
Facts are facts. And once we did that, everything changed. That's when the league went from everybody coming up and drinking and hanging out, or in some cases before that, we never even talked to each other. None of us knew anybody from Ruckus or Nighthawks. We just came in and played with our friends and left. But then we started drinking, then we started hanging out, and then we got introduced. And then next thing you know, Marty Snook, Fall 17, AFN, Broad Axe, X Dogs, Top Gun, Ruckus, Red Knights, Warriors, the Assassins debuted.
We weren't last.
What a time period that kicked off. And you know what? It went through Marty Snook. And we saw great times. We saw Ryan Grable's final run. That run that nobody talks about anymore, but I will now. Ryan Grable's final season with Broad Axe, one of the greatest runs you'll ever see. It leads into a championship in a year where the competition stepped up between TMT and AFN. Who could forget Chris Boone debuted that season? The two quarterbacks, Chris TJ, then Chris and Chuck Boyd. Nobody knew how to guard that offense. Nobody could figure it out. And then you had AFN, who brought this defense that was so unreal to watch, in this combination of so much talent brought together. But then Broad Axe, they stood tall. They won in the end. X-Dogs, they fought back. Matt Eisenberg coming back from his ACL injury. Who could forget Spring 18, South High. Fast times at South High, Rosser. Oh my God. Every weekend was pay-per-view. AFN, Mayhem, ADR, Broad Axe, Ruckus, Warriors, Top Gun, Red Knights. What a competitive fucking league. Every week at South. And then we had North, and less said about North, the better. But North began the run of ADR, the dynasty. The dynasty that dominated the Washington County Flag Football League.
At least at North we had two fields.
That was true. I like the two-field feature. And you know what, Ross? You look at that run ADR had. You look back at AFN, that championship season they had. You look back at some of the great games over the years, some of the teams we've watched over the years. And you look at last season in the Washington County Flag Football League. And you look at what happened with Misfits, Showtime. Then you got teams on the rise. Spartans. Broad Axe is coming back. X-Dogs aren't dead yet. The Warriors. And I'll tell you, man, this last 7 years has been one hell of a ride. We have had so much fun, whether it be going to Tony's Pizzeria in fabulous Hagerstown, Maryland, whether it, we started this show, Washington County Flag Football Live.
Yeah.
We started at Tony's.
I went up there one time. I'm never driving this far again, Joey.
Trust me, I never like to drive myself.
No.
But you know what? They had the pizza buffet. They had the crappy Wi-Fi.
But you were like, dude, all I need is good Wi-Fi. And I was like, I think I have that.
And that's when I started. And at first I was a little reluctant. I was a little hesitant. I was like, would he be okay with me doing this every week? Is he gonna be this guy's got a wife, he's got a kid, he's got a nice dog. Like, is he gonna be okay with this? And then, one day, I remember the Bassford Heritage Bowl. You all won, and you wanted to celebrate here, and I came here. We did a show, me, you, and Joe. And then, Tyler started coming over. And then, slowly and surely over the last 3 years, you watched us go from just a bunch of guys who would meet up and smoke weed and drink beer and talk some flag football to the foundation of a team. Team Blunt Talk. The dynasty, the franchise, the future of flag football. And sitting here all those nights in the garage, you, me, T. Spence, it's quite a ride, quite an experience. We had some good times, Ross. We really did have some good times in the Washington County Flag Football League. And, the last couple years have really changed a lot for me, Like, I went out and I started TBT just as for fun team, just to go out, get a couple guys together. Let's just make a fun team to play tournament ball with. And then, we won that first tournament. And then we came to York as the favorites. Didn't even know we were that good.
I didn't either.
I didn't even realize. I remember Dietz told us we were an A team.
I remember somebody walking by and being like, you all win, right? And I was like, no, we lost. And they were like, what? TBT lost? I was like,
and everybody, yeah. And then, and then we went out and we won the Winter Chiller by technicality, but we still kicked ass. We won.
Whatever.
And then, 2020 was pretty rough for TBT. It really was when you think back to it. You go back, we were supposed to play spring. I had a really good team ready for the spring for KFFL. And then those guys couldn't come. And so I had to improvise. I tried to put us in Summer Showdown. And that was more of a summer shit show. And, there's a lot of me personally regretting a lot of the way things went with TBT last year on terms of that team. I don't know. It's kind of weird I'm thinking about it. I guess for me, I look at it like this. I've done so much in the Washington County Flag Football League. I started the Survivors with Daniel and my uncle. I went on and played for the Ducks. I filmed games. I played on the Red Knights in the circuit. I was there when TJ brought in too much talent. And, the one thing, and, I didn't realize this. I didn't realize how much of a void this was until last year. I talked about how frustrating it was with TBT, and York didn't go well in the summer showdown, didn't have the guys, and then KFFL happened, and then KFFL, I won't say we didn't have the commitment, but I would say more so we didn't have the focus. We didn't have the right, because sometimes sometimes things don't work. And you sit there and I sat there and I was like, man, I don't think I can do TBT anymore. Because I can't run TBT the way I want to run TBT. Because I'm held back by my own financial restraints. If it was up to me, I'd buy all the entry fee and just say, come on aboard. Because to me, that's the key to winning. And so, I got out of that game, and now Team Blunt Talk is just a media company. We just film games. We got a nice little contract of a couple different leagues. You can tune in this spring for OMFFL on TBT. But, really bothers me that I never won Washington County. I never won. I never, I don't have a ring. And, I figure if I can't do TBT the way I want it to be, who's to say that now that I'm no longer the official broadcaster of the Washington County Flag Football League, that I can't join a team or be part of a team. And there's been a lot of shakeup going on behind the scenes for a couple of franchises. And I sat there and I had a conversation with a gentleman in regards to their team. And at the end of that conversation, we shook hands and agreed that we're going to win the Washington County Flag Football League. So I ask of you, what are you going to do, WCFFL, when the Warriors come out and play?